Again, a lot of my things that I thought you've kind of proved me wrong. I always
like
thought
a lawyer here.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Top Fives with Don Sill. I'm your host, Don Sill, and we got another great top five in store for you. It's the top five comedians who emerged in the 60s. With the hippies and the beatniks, the world was taking a turn in a whole different place, and it was probably one of the most important decades for stand-up comedy. The 60s sure was groovy. And joining me today is the one and only Wayne Federman. Not only is he a hilarious comedian and actor, but he also wrote the book on stand-up.
Hey, do you know who that guy is?
I don't even know who I am.
Oh, well, you're Pablo Picasso.
Please, everybody, remember to subscribe, like, and comment below. We're interested in your top five and want to hear what you have to say, too. Without further ado, let's get right to it. Me and Wayne Federman with our top five comedians who emerged in the 60s. All right, we are here with the great Wayne Federman. Wayne, thanks so much for coming on. This is an honor having you on this show.
Yeah.
You literally wrote the book on the history of stand-up comedy.
Correct.
So I think this is great to have you on. So basically, this is the top five comedians who emerged in the 60s.
Can I ask you a question before we even start?
Yes.
Does that mean they started their career in the 60s, they became famous, or they were at the peak of their career in the 60s?
I think for me, it meant more they emerged. They came to, like, because I think about, like, Carlin and Pryor, who both started. They both started in the 60s, but that was kind of their clean period, or before they found themselves.
Right.
Before,
So you don't count those two guys?
I think they're more set. I would say they emerged in the 70s.
Okay, I agree with that. Yep.
All right, cool.
All right.
So yes, so this is comics who emerged. So like
I got it.
He's
I got
on
it.
my
You don't
list.
have to
Okay.
say, you don't have to say anymore. I got it.
Excellent. So, but I do want to say that I think that there's many pivotal eras in comedy, many pivotal periods. I think the 60s might be one of the most pivotal because it served like a changing of the guard. You don't think so?
No, I mean, yes and no. I mean, I feel like every era has that. There's a great book called Comedy at the Edge. Did you ever read that?
Yes,
by Richard
I did.
Soglin?
It's a great book, yeah.
Well, his whole point is like, it was the 70s that changed it. And then there's another book that's like the 80s changed it. And then there's like, So, yes, it's always, this is my point. I hope I'm not yelling. This is my point in my book, is that sorry, Don.
No, it's great.
That it's like it's always changing and evolving, and in a way sort of rejecting a little bit of what happened before. So, and you're like, now we have a new way of doing it.
Of course, it wasn't that he was of a brand new generation. As a matter of fact, he was a guy 40 plus who spoke for his generation. We all forget because we hear Benny and Hope and Burl, and we forget that people are being born every day, and they just don't always speak for their time. He spoke for his time.
You could say the comedy is not really timeless. Like if you look back at some of the old stuff, doesn't hold water. But why I say that about the 60s is mainly because before, Mort Saul came along and
that's
those
50s.
guys.
That's 50s.
Right, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, but the late 50s, right? When did Mort Saul come in?
53.
Oh, really? And that's when he changed the game with the V-necks and all that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, he started at 53. By 55, by the late 50s, he was the new wave. I call it in the book the new wave. What do you call it?
I think it was the new wave too, and that's what I mean, because I feel it was late 50s, early 60s, and you would know better than me, but I always thought it was Shelley Berman, Mort Saul, Jonathan Winters, and Lenny all happened around the same period and turned the tide, right?
Yeah, those are all late 50s. So, yes, but there was a comedian named Herb Schreiner that's who Mort Saul based his act on.
He come up here one time, he always told us about it. He came up to go over Niagara Falls in a barrel, and he darn near drowned. They forgot to take the beer out of the barrel. I don't know what was the matter.
So there was comedians doing kind of like easygoing, not slick Vegas stuff before Mort Saul, just not as famous as him. That's all.
Right. Yeah. So Mort was the one that broke through with that style.
Oh, he's definitely the Moses of that, the new wave. No question.
Right.
No question.
Now with us in the Hollywood Palace tonight is a young man who has a very rare gift of finding humor in this very complex world of ours. I want you to meet him. Here he is, Mort Saul.
I can't wait to talk about this. By the way, can I? I'm loving. What is this? A basement? What am I looking at?
Well, when the pandemic first hit and we all got quarantined, I gave an homage to Wayne's World because they were the original podcasters.
Yeah.
This is the Wayne's World.
Oh, that's
set.
awesome! I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Party! Welcome to Wayne's World. Here's your host, Wayne Campbell.
Party! The original kind of podcasters doing it.
Yeah. That was Wayne's World's a local cable access show,
Cable
right?
access TV.
Yeah.
They did.
The kids even know what cable access means. That's crazy. You know what comedian had like a cable access show that actually did pretty well was Chris Gethard. Do you know that guy?
I've heard of him.
He's sort of an alt comic, came out of UCB, and he actually in the 2000s he had like a cable. It was like, all right, I'm gonna try to do it.
That sounds like the opposite of everything that is true. Someone really genuinely thinks that I'm the coolest person in the world, then my response would be that person has to be the saddest person in the world.
So is that a background? That's not really your thing?
Yeah, this is a background. This is just.
I see. Yeah. This is my real life, guys. This is my real reality.
And you got an awesome setup.
Yeah, you got some drums there. My name's Wayne. It's like we have a lot in common.
Yeah, there you go. So you are the real Wayne's World, right?
Of course, this is an actual world where Wayne Federman lives.
Swing!
All right, so now we're going to get into this top five, and I hope that I'm correct here with my guys who emerged in the '60s. Correct me if I'm wrong. I got a
no. I love debating. There's no right or wrong, but I'll be forceful. So, do you want me to go first or you to go first?
Yeah, you can go first. Who's your number five?
Well, this is just off the top of my head, and again, I'm open to number one. Number one for the whole '60s is Bill Cosby. There's no question. That's the guy.
Yeah, so Bill Cosby he would be your you're going from 1 to 5 or from 5 to 1, or does it matter at this point?
I wasn't doing it in any kind of order other than I think Bill Cosby is the biggest comic to emerge out of the '60s.
All right, and it's so when we agree on a guy or
get
a
bell?
woman, we get a bell.
Let me hear it.
I'll have to put it in post, but it'll be ding ding.
Okay.
But if we agree on it, it automatically goes to our final top 5.
Okay.
That person. So my number 5 is also Bill Cosby. And because Bill Cosby, he broke through on so many levels. Again, you got to remember it's the '60s, and there's so many things that were happening in the '60s with civil rights and all these things, women's rights, all these. There was a lot going on, Vietnam, and all those types of things were brewing, and it was very difficult for African American comedians to break through, and guys like Dick Gregory were doing it, and there was comedians that were doing it, but not superstar level, I guess, like Bill Cosby, and he had that family-friendly kind of crossover vibe. He was a kinder, gentler Dick Gregory in a lot of ways, and like you said, his records are legendary. And he just, kind of with all his comedy records, and how many Grammys did he win?
I think he won 6 in a row in the '60s. I think from '64 to '69 or something like that, Yeah. I know, the first one didn't win, but I think all of those others, Why Is There Air, Wonderfulness, To My Brother Russell, all of those, I think, won Grant. He dominated and put out a new album every year, and obviously, it was incredible.
This may sound a little off color, but this is true. First time I ever wore jockstrap was junior high school, gym class. And there were some guys didn't know how to put it on. Some guys had it on backwards, Really, it's true. We had one kid went out and bought 2 of them, put on one for each leg, They put little pieces of rubber down. He thought they would help you from hurting your hip if you bumped into anything.
And the 60s was the era of the comedy record, really. I mean, they were out in the 50s and before then, but in the 60s, I think comedy records were like Netflix today. Everybody had, you weren't.
Very good. Yep.
Yeah, you know, and a comic wasn't a comic until he had a record out.
Well, here's the thing, and I write about it in my book. Thank you for reading it. The History of Stand-Up, from Mark Twain to Dave Chappelle. That's the last time I'll say the title. Is that some of the older comedians didn't want to put out an album. I know you're saying you weren't a comedian, but that was more like the younger comics, like Saul, Federman, obviously Bob Newhart, who will be on my list a little later on. They were like, oh, this is a way for us to get noticed.
Right.
And then people like Alan King were like, why should I put out an album for $2.98 when I can make $25,000 a week in Vegas?
Yeah, just touring and performing in Vegas. And
right.
Catskill guys, yeah.
Yeah. So
I could
it was
understand
really
that.
A generational thing at that time.
Did Alan King ever put out a record? Do you know?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
But Alan, everybody's doing it. That made it right immediately. Everybody's doing it.
Because these guys, I mean, they're a little more like they worked on their act and they had an act.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to burn it. They didn't want to burn it. So it was a real generational. It's kind of like, same thing with today where there's comedians just like, during the pandemic, like, I'm not going to go on YouTube. And other comedians are like, well, guess what? I have the open field then.
Right, exactly.
That?
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, there were
Thank
so
you.
many comedians.
I'm a historian, man. Come on.
Our next guest is a talented comedian who has written a new book called The History of Stand-Up, From Mark Twain to Dave Chappelle, which is available now. Please welcome Wayne Federman.
So many comedians did hold out on the YouTube Zoom era of stand-up. And then just waited it out,
Right.
Miserably.
And some comedians really made money. There was comedians that made a lot of money during the pandemic figuring out Zoom comedy, right?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of them. And the commute was great.
Exactly. I'm doing it in the Wayne's World set.
There you go.
Until that party on, Garth.
Party on, Wayne!
Wayne's World! Wayne's World!
But yeah, I think the only thing, with those old guys, I think, with having a record, it's you archive your material forever. But
no, they didn't see it that way. They were just like, there isn't a Shecky Green record, right? I don't think so. I mean, there might be, but it wasn't like it wasn't like what Cosby was doing, and then Pryor and Carlin and those guys in the 70s.
Well, you know what we did? We went to one doctor. This guy said to me, Shecky, you'll have to take the bottle test. What? I said, I don't understand the bottle test. I've never had a great biological education because when I was going to school, we learned about sex with a frog that was dipped in formaldehyde. We had to buy the frog, too. It cost us $2.50. And the girls at Calumet City were 50 cents cheaper at that time.
And better, they should have been dipped in formaldehyde.
All right, so
Bill we agree. I can't believe we're agreeing already.
Bill Cosby, one of the
and
great.
We've never met. We've never met, right? We've never
met, but I feel like I know you because I've been
thanks,
watching
brother.
you my whole life, pretty much.
Okay, easy. Okay,
you were in some of the best movies ever.
You're like when I was a little child, you were already. I was like, okay, I get it. I'm old. I get it.
I didn't break your glasses. It was the hug that broke them. It wasn't you specifically,
Yeah,
but
okay,
you were the one who instigated the hug.
Is that your wife, Nancy?
Right here, Don.
Can I come over this afternoon and touch your face?
Sure.
Thanks. Good luck, guys.
We'll see you, Don.
It's therealned8@gmail.com.
At Gmail? You mean Gmail?
Oh, is that how you say it?
Who do you have for number 4?
Well, again, these are in no order. I'm going to say this is going to be controversial. I was thinking about this last night. A guy from Brooklyn, his name's Woody Allen.
Woody Allen. Great pick.
Yeah,
Great pick.
so let's find it. I don't have to say anymore. Obviously, he put out 3 albums, 2 of them on Cold Picks, 1, I believe, on Warner Brothers, and then quit. And by the end of the 60s was a filmmaker. Like, that's that's how, crazy, yeah.
What are you doing Saturday night?
Committing suicide.
What about Friday night?
And he started in the Greenwich Village days with like
Yep.
all those greats. Like I think he was running around the same time with like Pryor and Carlin and Joan Rivers and all of them. And
Oh yeah, you know, look at you.
Yeah.
You could have written this book. You didn't have to. Yeah.
It's because I read the book. I know all the stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was an interesting time, right before the comedy clubs.
Yeah.
You know, right before,
With places like the Hungry Eye and stuff like that really kind of broke, and especially in the 60s. And
I love it. I love that everyone knows this story now. It's so fun.
Yeah.
So that's my number 4 or 2, or I don't know.
No, I think Woody Allen definitely deserves to be on the list, and I think
ding. Ding ding.
I think he was pivotal because like his style of humor, that kind of worrying, self-depreciative, kind of Jewish guy. Oh, everything, I don't know. I know there was a lot of Jewish comedians before him, but I don't know if they ever captured that kind of style of who he was and that
super neurotic.
Yeah.
And the phone rings, and I answer it, and a voice on the other end says, "How would you like to be this year's vodka man?" And I said, "No. I'm an artist. I do not do commercials. I will not pander. I don't drink vodka. And if I did, I wouldn't drink your product." And he said, "Too bad. It pays $50,000. And I said, "Hold on. I'll put Mr. Allen on the phone."
And
I think Shelley Berman a little bit caught on to that as before Woody Allen did. But if you listen, but not quite to the level of what Woody. I just love. Yeah, keep going. Tell me about Woody. Tell me.
I just think that Woody Allen definitely paved a style of, for lack of a better word, I guess like the nerd or or that kind of guy, the loser, to and still get the laughs and come out on top. And I mean, it comes through in some of his early movies too. The characters he would play, this lovable, down on his luck guy.
Right. But still, like with over like highly sexualized too. Like it was a weird kind of mix.
I hope you haven't been watching me. I'm not very good.
I was strolling down here just now, and I noticed that you were drawing something, and I thought that I would...
You can look at it if you want to.
Can I?
It's not very good.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I think that's wonderful.
Like I'm the coward and and then I loved him. But anyway, if you, I just love those records, and I just thought it's sad he didn't do it anymore. But he was already a working comedy writer before he started doing stand-up, so he already had like a financial.
Sid Caesar, right? He wrote on that show.
Not on your show of shows, but a later Sid Caesar show he did, and he gave jokes. He wrote for other comedians, and he was just he was a writer. Like it came easy to him. He could just write. Like put him in front of a typewriter, he could write comedy. It was whatever that genius thing is. And also for me, you're familiar with UCB, right? That
the comedy.
So they have a manual on like how to do improv and stuff like that. And one of their rules is always perform to the top of your intelligence. And I always thought that Woody Allen, even though he was the nebbishy guy, it was always very high as far as even his movies with the references and stuff. And I'm not saying he's a super intellectual, but I'm just saying I enjoyed that part of it as opposed to maybe what Buddy Hackett was doing. You know what I mean? Like the big headliners of those days. It was like, oh, this is a smart, all right, this is good.
I live across the street from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which is this fabulous museum of art. And when I was younger, I used to hang out a lot at the museum in search of a meaningful social relationship of some. I used to look for girls at the museum.
Yeah, he didn't dumb it down.
No.
Yeah. No. Yeah, and I think he's a brilliant guy, and he's right there for me of guys like and not in style, just in the fact that he stopped doing it, like Steve Martin or Eddie Murphy. Or
very
why?
good.
Why did you stop? He was so great.
And you must take my word for this. There is something seductive about me when I shoot crap.
All right, so my number 4 also, I believe, emerged in the 60s, and that it was Joan Rivers.
Oh, you have Joan. Okay, yeah.
Yep. And I'll say Joan, she was not the first female comedian by any means. I think she took the path of like a Gene Carroll style of like she just kind of went
Look at you with the Gene Carroll reference.
I said, no, I'll tell you, after looking at it again, I don't think the lines are right for me. My legs are too short. She said, nonsense, they reach the floor, don't they?
I love Gene Carroll. She's awesome. And I think Joan kind of took more of that style than like a Phyllis Diller style. I think she went more with like the kind of the glam, smarter,
dressed up, yeah,
right, comedy than the self-loathing look.
But it was still a little self-deprecating, but not quite to the clownish level of Phyllis Diller or Tony Fields. Yeah.
I was a fat child, not ugly so much, but like fat, like fat, like I was my own buddy at camp, That's
And yeah, I think she did. She continued blazing that trail that Gene Carroll.
Now,
had
would
started.
you say she emerged? Because I feel like peak Joan Rivers is almost the '80s. Like I feel like that's when she was hosting the Tonight Show and the thing, and the Elizabeth Taylor and Can We Talk and all of that stuff. I feel like much more than the '60s. But that again, I have no problem putting Joan Rivers on that list. But
no,
what do you think about that?
I think now that you've mentioned that, I think you might be right. I think she really emerged. Now that you say that, that's the Joan everybody knows, right? Is the 80s Joan. That's the Can We Talk? And the more in your face Joan. She wasn't
right,
like
making fun of fat people and
I have no bazooms. You know what it's like to stand up in front of your husband naked and say, what does this remind you of? And he said, pancakes for breakfast. Except, can we talk?
Yeah, and she was hosting the Tonight Show. I mean, she was a permanent host of guest host of the Tonight Show for a while until she ruined that relationship by taking that other job. But
and now, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Joan Rivers.
But so anyway, that would be my one caveat on Joan Rivers.
I think you're correct on that. Let me write all this down so I have the list going on. So we both agreed on Bill Cosby.
Woody.
Then we got Woody Allen.
Yeah.
And then we got Joan.
I love that our first two are like super controversial. Like both.
After years of denial and claims that the encounter was consensual, Bill Cosby for the first time faces criminal charges.
Allen vs. Farrell filmmakers Amy Ziering and Kirby Dick revealed new evidence in their second episode that support the sexual abuse claims against Woody Allen.
Both guys did not age well.
Yeah. Both was like, really? These are the comedians? Like, it was like, I know it's hard, but they judge these guys in the light of allegations.
Yeah, they're still relevant today, but not.
I know, for other reasons.
But I wonder how Joan, if she would still be alive, if she would have been canceled by now too.
I don't know. I think she was kind of beyond getting canceled because once you hit a certain age, I just don't think you can, unless you do something so egregious.
Right.
Yeah, but. No, she got a lot of blowback, I remember, in the 80s for all of those jokes. I remember.
Yeah, she had.
There's some there was already some culture kickback of that.
Well, how can they sue me? Was Elizabeth Taylor thin? No. If we went into court, she would have needed at that point 2 chairs. So who are they going to believe, right?
All right, this is a great list. You're very knowledgeable. You're very knowledgeable.
Hey, that's why I'm like psyched to talk to you because.
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying it.
All right, so who do you have for number 3?
Well, number 3, I have Bob Newhart.
Bob Newhart.
Yeah.
He's. I love Bob Newhart, but he's not. He's not on my list. He was on my top 10.
Okay, let me make the case for Bob Newhart. Okay. Bob Newhart had maybe one of the most legendary ascents in the history of show business, in that they record his first nightclub performances. That's the first time ever in a nightclub, down in Houston at Tidelands. They make a record of it. They put it out. It goes to number one, the first number one stand-up album in the history of the entertainment industry.
Right.
It's number one for 14 weeks.
Damn.
Number one. Okay, I'm not done. I'm not done making my case for Bob Newhart out of Chicago. All right, so no stand-up album has ever been number one for 14 weeks, before or since, okay? I'm talking about emerging.
Right.
Then, you know what happened at the Grammy Awards. Not only does he win Record of the Year, which is not that album, it's his next album wins Record of the Year, but that album, Button Down Mine, wins Album of the Year, beating out the Music Acts. So it would be like today if Jim Gaffigan beat out Beyonce for Album of the Year.
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
Right.
Just let that sink in. It wouldn't even be fathomable. It's not even And so for those reasons alone, and I agree, like he as a he worked as a stand-up artist during the 60s doing those things, but he wasn't, the follow-up albums weren't quite the same level. And he really is, I think, more famous for being a sitcom actor than for a stand-up, to tell you the truth.
Right.
In the 70s.
Hello?
But that debut, it's unprecedented. I can't wait to see who you have above this guy.
Willard, I have the manual right here in front of me. Now describe the thing to me. Yeah, it sounds like a torpedo of some kind, Willard. It's probably one of ours. Are there any markings on it? Made in Japan. It still could be one of ours, Willard.
Well, at first I want to say I love Bob Newhart, and I think like he broke so much ground, the telephone style of comedy, which I don't know if
he wasn't the first.
Yes. Do you know if Shelley Berman was always mad at him forever, or did they ever? Because Shelley
Berman was upset about it.
Yeah.
But here's the crazy thing: Shelley Berman didn't invent that style. That style was predated both those guys. But Shelley Berman did hit a year before Bob Newhart's did.
Right, yeah.
I know I called you. I don't know what was on my mind. Well, okay, so long. Thanks for calling.
But then Newhart, did he already have a buzz? How did his record get so popular? Because he came out of nowhere, right? In the comedy world.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Was like a local guy in Chicago doing radio bits with a partner, and then broke up with that guy, and it was just complete luck and the right. But really, if you think about that material, the Button Down Mine. So all of his jokes, excuse me a sec, I'm eating as we're doing this. Sorry. All of his jokes, a lot of his jokes are about what would happen if we used modern advertising back in the old days, back when baseball or for tobacco.
Right.
So we would put modern ethos into historic events, and it was just great. And then also the driving instructor, like he just had an innate sense of how to do it. He's the opposite of, who's that guy? Malcolm Gladwell. Do you know that book called, it's about you need to do 10,000 hours to be good at something.
And the answer seems to be, it's an extraordinarily consistent answer in an incredible number of fields, and that is you need to have practice to have apprenticed for 10,000 hours before you get good.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever that book is called.
Right. I know what you're talking about.
So he's like the opposite of that. Like he got it right away.
It was like his first time ever. It wasn't his first time doing stand-up, but it was his first time.
It was the first time in a nightclub doing stand-up.
Yeah.
Yep.
The flagship of the Swedish Freighter Company, and through the driving rain and the high seas, I can just barely make out the solitary figure of the captain, an heroic human being against a vast and angry sea. Get me off this lousy boat!
That's crazy, right?
And he was an opening act. He was the opening act at the Tidelands. He wasn't even like, no one knew who he was, and they, most of the recordings went terrible, and the late one night he just caught fire.
How fast were you going when Mr. Adams jumped from the car? 75? And where was that? In your driveway. How far had Mr. Adams gotten in the lesson? Backing out.
It was just a convergence, almost like, I'm not going to compare it to the Beatles, but something just like, oh, this is how we want our comedy now. And there was, God, what is the comedian's name? Oh, Joey Bishop.
That hurts. I don't know how she stands the pain.
Oh, yeah.
Joey Bishop was who slugged it out for years in these nightclubs. You can imagine, you work governors, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So those clubs are even worse than comedy clubs, those nightclubs. So years of finally getting an act and doing that, and then all of a sudden, there's a kid who's like, I don't even know if it's that Bob Newhart act would work in a regular nightclub with people drinking, So they were all jealous of him, and they couldn't do it our way. And I was like, yeah, guess what? A new way of comedy was created.
Listen, how are things coming on the plane? At Kitty Hawk last week, how'd it go? 105 feet, huh? That's all. Do the 12 guys still have to push it down the hill? They do, huh? Well, see, that's going to cut our time to the coast. I mean, if we got to land every 105 feet.
Like you said earlier, I'm sorry I'm talking too much. Go ahead.
No, this is great. I love hearing this. And throughout your career, do you ever get a chance to meet him, Bob Newhart?
Not only have I met him, I've written for him.
Wow.
I used to write award shows, and he was on one, so I wrote some stuff for him. And then when I did this is going to sound like I'm bragging, so I really apologize. When I did the Tonight Show, he contacted me because he saw my set and loved it. Because I do very clean kind of stuff that would be in his wheelhouse.
I liked the name Wayne until the fourth grade when my teacher was like, Wayne is also a word. I go, I did not know that. She goes, yeah, it's a verb. I go, what does it mean? Like to run or to play? She's like, oh, no. It means to diminish slowly over time.
Yeah.
And then later he hired me to work on some old comedy bits of his that needed updating.
Wow, man.
I couldn't believe it. And I just, so I have his home number. I have Bob Newhart's home number. Wow. It's so stupid.
That's great, man. That's fantastic.
Very lucky, very lucky.
Bob Newhart is definitely one of the greats of our time.
But apparently not a top 5 for you.
We'll call you back as soon as we have an opening. No, don't call us. We'll call you.
Well, regular time. And after all I've said, all my whole
he's
case.
Definitely.
All right, keep going. I want to hear what you have to say.
All right. So my next one, again, it's hard for me sometimes when I think about these guys, if you could say they emerged in the 50s or the 60s. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure this guy is the 60s, early 60s probably, because I think he was a Hungry Eye guy and all that. And, it's Jonathan Winters.
I mean, talk about breaking the mold.
Yeah.
Talk about breaking the mold. Yes, he did start in the 50s. But yes, he did have that TV show in the 60s. And what do you like about Winters? I want to hear.
What I love about Jonathan Winters is pretty much what everyone would say. I think he instantly has a likability factor. I think when I first discovered him, I was a younger kid, didn't know anything. I just immediately liked him. I thought he was funny, just in his demeanor, who he was. He's just naturally a funny guy, likability factor through the roof. Mm-hmm. I think the first time I saw him was Mad World with him, Buddy Hackett, and all those, and a bunch of comedians in that movie of that time. And I always loved Jonathan Winters because in that movie he was this like crazy tough guy and all that, but he's hilarious. Then he had that show. This is just me discovering Jonathan Winters. I think it was in the 70s and 80s where he was on like Showtime or HBO, where he was in the attic and he would just pull out things out of the chest and do improv. But then when you read him and listen to his old records and stuff like that, you could see how brilliant he was with props, different situations, different dialects, how he can make anything funny, any topic thrown at him, and paved the way for a legion of people from, like everybody from Gallagher to Robin Williams.
Here we are, Robin Leach, Lifestyles the Unusual and Funny. We are back at someone's backyard talking louder than anyone we've ever known. Jonathan Winters, I'm wearing a cheap suit. He's got an emblem. Let's watch. Let's see what his home is like.
They're all buried over in here. Those people wouldn't do the unusual or buried over there.
Yeah. No, he's just a one-of-a-kind singular talent. And his breakthrough, here's a little comedy history if you want some.
Of course.
His breakthrough, he was in New York, and he used to do impressions. He still, every once in a while, you'll hear he'll do Bing Crosby or something. And somebody gave him a great piece of advice. He goes, look, there's dozens and dozens of impressionists. Like, they're all over the place. But he goes, you're also doing characters. Maybe you should just do characters and not impressions. Because if you do an impression, you're basically using the guy's juice. Kirk Douglas, any of those guys, they would do impressions of Burt Lancaster. You're using their juice to enhance you. But if you can bring something your own, then you'll go to the next level. And so he dropped the impressions and started doing just, Maude and the Thing and the Neighbor and the African guy and the thing like he could do. He was ridiculous.
Boy, if I can just get by that sycamore, there's a big German brown trout waiting right for me. Oh, gee.
See, I think he started breaking on the Jack Paar Tonight Show, which is the 50s. That's 57 to 62. So it might have been early 60s. It might have been early 60s. But yes, he was too avant-garde for Sullivan. I don't think he ever did an Ed Sullivan show.
Really? Never did Ed Sullivan?
I think Sullivan was like...
a little worried about him.
Yeah. Because he was, and...
When did Winters have didn't he have a breakdown? Was it outside of the Hungry Eye?
It was, very good. Did you read that book? There's another book that's so good. Not my book. Another book. It's called Seriously Funny. It's about this era of Gerald Nachman. Did you read the book?
That's the book I read where they talk about him climbing a pole.
Yes. Yeah, no, he had some severe mental problems. He had, trouble with his parents, and there's an insane story of him. I think he went off into the army or something like that, and he had all these toys. I believe he's from, Dayton, Ohio or something. He's, from the Midwest.
Right, yeah.
And had all these toys. I think they were army men. He was just so you could imagine him creating this world, right?
Exactly. Just play with the toys.
Yeah. You could just imagine the creativity. And then when he came back from the service, all his toys had been thrown out by his mom. And he was like, why'd you do that? They go, we didn't know if you were going to make it back.
Damn. That's heavy.
That's how you become a comedian, right there.
Roy, did you see that? That thing must have gone that big, you see?
Yeah, that's right. That thing must have gone that
Down there, the far end of the lake. I think they're down there. Oh, they're over here. After all that stuff all over me. You dropped the stringer, and there goes the beer. Look out, the bait box is gone. How about that, Alphonse? How about that?
Right?
Yes. That's great.
Right. If you need an inciting incident, okay, Jesus Christ. That's so layered. We didn't know if you were going to make it back. So we took the one thing that gave you joy in life.
Wow. That's great.
So painful.
That is how you become one of the greatest comedians ever.
Exactly. I love it.
All right, so now we're at number 3. Who do you have for number?
Well, this one's going to be controversial because he only did comedy for a very short amount of time and then sort of gave it up. But I'm going to say Dick Gregory. Dick Gregory. Because he broke through. He's the first comedian to really headline a white there was white and black comedy. There was the Chitlin Circuit. So Red Fox couldn't even play white rooms as a rule. And certainly headline. And so he was the first one who got famous for it. There was another guy called Timmy Rogers who actually did play White Knight Club in South, but it doesn't matter. But he was the guy. He's the Jackie Robinson. And again, he, everyone knows the Playboy gig and, January 61, and he changes everything.
I feel so sorry for Willie. I hate to see any baseball player having trouble. But that's a great sport for my people. That is the only sport in the world where a Negro can shake a stick at a white man and won't start no riot.
He's on Time, there's an article in Time magazine, there's an Esquire, he goes on Jack Parr, and then suddenly the doors are open. And if you think about it, Cosby hits less than 2 years later.
Yeah, right.
Richard Pryor hits, starts working 2 years later. So it's like the doors were wide open. And so I'm going to say Dick Gregory for that reason. What do you think? Is he even on your top 20?
Oh, of course. Dick Gregory is a huge thing. And I have him on my list too, my top 10 as well. And basically, just I don't know if can you hear that buzzing sound or no? Okay.
No.
Okay, good. So anyway,
I wanted to bother you though. I wanted to throw you off your game a little bit.
I think Dick Gregory is an extremely important comedian on so many levels, and he came around the right time as an activist and a comedian, and he was one of the first ones too to kind of shine a light on white America and make us laugh at ourselves a little bit.
Yep.
Like
no question.
A lot of times, with black comedy back then, the joke was either amongst each other if they were doing like the Chitlin circuit or something, they would do their own humor or whatever, and then other times it would be self on themselves. And then, at one point the audience was laughing at them, then the audience started laughing with them, and then with Dick Gregory, he was laughing at us in a sense and calling us out on things. He was like the Black Lenny Bruce. And it was all the perfect time.
They called him the Black Mort Soff. They did call him that.
Oh, they did? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and that perfect sense.
About 3 months ago, I worked up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and everybody told me, said, Greg, you love this state of Minnesota. We have terrific civil rights laws. And in this state, you'd never know you're Negro. And that's right. But they pick on the Indian. Which means to me, if that Indian ever pack his bag and leave that state of Minnesota, we better get on that next train out of there.
Because he wasn't dirty. He wasn't dirty like Lenny Bruce, but he would talk about he talk about society.
Right.
But, and those jokes are so fun.
And you could say, too, like, if you follow the whole tree, I always look at it like comedy, like music, like genres, or like a family tree, and you have different genres. And I look at that tree root, that line, if there was never, a Dick Gregory, you wouldn't have Dave Chappelle. I don't know
if that's true, but he's definitely he's the root of that entire tree.
Right, throughout that tree, everybody begets somebody, and it all goes back to Dick Gregory. I don't know who's before Dick Gregory. Is there anyone that
black comedians?
Yeah, just in general, he was the first of his ilk
of that style. But there was a guy named Timmy Rogers. There's obviously Red Fox. There was a dude named Nipsey Russell.
Oh, Nipsey.
All of these guys were. Nipsey Russell. Yeah. And Moms Mabley, obviously, she was incredible. And then in the old days, before that, there was Burt Williams and his partner, and so there was. But there's. Again, Dick Gregory with the suit, with the thing, standing like he used to say. He had this great quote: flat-footed on stage and just talking about being a black guy in America in 1960. It was just, and he was so smooth. And it's interesting that you bring up Chappelle, because I do think there's a lot of similarities in their style.
Yeah.
They're so smooth, and they both smoke on stage.
They both smoke on stage.
Yeah, they're both very, they have just, what's that? Just like dripping with confidence and taking their time and all. None of the nervous, jerky stuff I do that's like, please like me. None of that. The audience can smell immediately.
Yeah, they both did have that confidence, because if you look at some
calm confidence,
early Dick Gregory, he's just sitting there smoking, and just being like, just looking at the audience, just like daring them to, like. And then he'd just tell you how it is, and it was just
so good,
so remarkable. And
by the way, that's a great word for him. It was remarkable.
Yes.
And not the sad thing. I mean, he got caught up in the civil rights movement, and that sort of really hurt his career in a big way. But he was like, I gotta be in Selma. I'm sorry.
I'm not only against the war in Vietnam, I'm against all wars. The Israeli war, if America decided to send troops into South Africa to liberate my black kinfolks, I'd be against that. I'm just against violence because you cannot solve problems with the gun.
And that says a lot about him as a person, that he was willing to sacrifice his career for the greater good.
For his thing, yeah.
But yeah,
amazing dude. Yeah. All right.
All right.
Go ahead. Let me hear another one of yours.
All right. So
now it's getting tough.
Now I'm at my number 3. Yeah. This is 3 or 2. I forget where we're at.
I don't know.
I think we're at.
This whole system is.
I think we're at
fraught.
2. I will say, I had Mort Saul, but you said earlier he didn't break in the 60s. He broke in the 50s. So with that in mind, I'm now there's my Bob Newhart. I have Shelley Berman.
Okay.
So Shelley.
Wait a minute. You have Shelley Berman above Bob Newhart?
Well, I just because now I took Mort Saul out. So now, and you already said Newhart at the end when we do our final 5.
Shelley Berman's album, I mean, it did come out in '59. Like that was his biggest album too, and it's the first gold comedy record. It's the first comedy album was Shelley Berman. What's it called? Inside Shelley Berman? Yeah.
Inside Shelley Berman, and then Outside Shelley Berman.
Yeah. So, all right. He was a big comic in the 60s. There's no doubt about it.
And I think Shelley too, I think he kind of changed the game in some regards with his style of comedy. And, again, a lot of my things that I thought you kind of proved me wrong. I always thought
like a lawyer here.
I always thought he was the first of the telephone style comedians. I thought he kind of invented that, and then I would always tell people I would attribute it to Shelley, and then Newhart took it and ran with it, and then you got Ellen DeGeneres who broke with that whole great telephone bit.
Yes.
Hi, Dad. This is Ellen. Ellen, DeGeneres. What's so funny? No, I never thought of that. It does sound like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, and those were always the great telephone style comedy that I love it because I think there's an art form to that not everybody can pull off. Where you're just doing one side.
You've never heard of George Jessel?
I have heard of George Jessel.
That's who he was famous for. It's in vaudeville. His phone called his hi. This is Georgie from the Money.
Yeah.
From the Money every month.
Mama, Georgie, your son from the Money every week. How are you?
Yeah, that was his thing. He's calling his mom. And
great George Jessel, yeah.
Yeah, so he did that, and not to get too nerdy on you, there's the first million-selling comedy record is called Cohen on the Telephone from 1913.
Oh, yes. Are you the bank? Yes. I want to see the manager, please. I say I want to see... What do you say? This is not a telescope, it's a telephone? You're very clever this morning, ain't it?
You don't have to know it, but just so you know, it goes back.
This is awesome, man. I love learning all this new stuff. This is great. All right, so so I had Shelley Berman. So who do you have for your number 2?
I don't know. I feel like I'm done. I feel like I have my 5 have already been said. So let me hear more on your list.
Well, I think my number 1 was going to be Lenny Bruce. But I feel like the legend of Lenny emerged in the 60s. When everything started popping. Like he was already doing like safe, when he's doing impressions and all that stuff. And I think he did Ed Sullivan or he did some TV or Steve Allen liked him, and he was doing that kind of stuff. But I think like in the 60s was when he started getting arrested a lot. And
you get arrested always in the 60s.
Yeah.
Always, yeah.
And that's when I think the legend of Lenny emerged, and also
that's a good point.
And kind of teetered, and because back then they would label anybody, and they kind of do it today too. If they don't like what you're saying, they'll dismiss you off as crazy or or something, or a criminal or whatever. Now it's you're a sick comic. Was back then. Oh, he's a sick comic. He's part of those sick guys. He's nuts.
Do you consider yourself a sick comic?
Yeah, that's interesting. Do I consider myself sick? No. There's a way. Sick, let's take the word, semantics, There's no such thing, naturally, as sick comedy, There's no such thing as beatniks. It's a writer's device. Beatniks were back as in Maxwell Bodenheim's era in The Village. Sick jokes go as far back as Shakespeare.
And he was controversial, he was rebellious, he was a philosopher who,
But that article that labeled him a sick comic is from 1959. So now again, of course, this is all, let me think about that, because I do agree with you. He's certainly, the articles about him getting arrested, those, in those 4 cities, it did kind of elevate him to this Saint Lenny status.
Right.
But I just feel like he emerged in the late 50s. But again, I'm splitting hairs here.
No, I mean,
and we're still talking about Lenny, so he is a legendary, right? You're no question about it. We still talk about that guy, right?
What year was it, if you know, when the famous, Lenny and Carlin in the same paddy wagon?
Oh, yeah. That's I believe in 61 or 62 in Chicago, Gate of Horn, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Where they shut down that show.
Yeah, because that's when, like, you could say, Carlin started to find his voice. Would you say that, like, in the early, like, because Lenny definitely inspired him and influenced him to some degree, right?
Partly, but Carlin would always say, and I'm not to be bragging, but I'm working on the Carlin documentary for HBO.
Oh,
right
yeah,
now.
that's right. That's awesome.
So, but Carlin would always say it was like Lenny's career was really hurt because he used this language. He goes, and my career was made because I did the 7 dirty words.
Right, yeah.
That made my career.
Right.
But there are some words that you can go to jail for. There are some words that we just have decided we will not say all the time.
That put me on the map, and then it got banned on that radio station, and suddenly I'm in the Supreme Court, the whole, my routine is being mentioned as Supreme Court precedent. So it was literally, it's not that many years apart, like you said, they were in a paddy wagon together. Yeah. So that's early, that might be 61 or 60. It's definitely not 60. It's that probably 62. Pasternak would know.
Right.
So I don't know. All right, I'll go with that. Because I do feel like Saint Lenny, the martyr, was definitely created in the 60s.
A peace officer who is trained to recognize clear and present dangers, not make believe, does the act. The grand jury watches him work and they go, that stinks. But I get busted. And the irony is that I have to go to court and defend his act.
But I think what's amazing is there was the time in America where you were like in a nightclub where people are paying adults are paying a cover charge. No one's complaining. It's not like anyone's like, oh my God, my morals were compromised because I listened to Lenny Bruce say the MF compound word. Nobody said any, and the police were like, we don't even want it in our city. What's going on in this private, establishment, and get arrested. It's staggering, right?
It is staggering, and it shows what Lenny would talk about sometimes, and also what Carlin would echo is the power of words. The words are harmless. They didn't do anything. It's the power that you give them, kind of thing. And the words. Just think about words is what drove this guy.
It's still today. Still today. There's some words you cannot say.
It's crazy.
Cannot say. And Carlin had the best. He goes, the words aren't bad or good in and of themselves. It's the intent behind the words.
They called them bad words, dirty, Filthy, foul, vile, vulgar, coarse, in poor taste, unseemly, street talk, gutter talk, locker room language, barracks talk, bawdy, naughty, saucy, raunchy, rude, crude, lewd, lascivious, indecent, profane, obscene, blue, off-color, risque, suggestive, cursing, cussing, swearing, and all I could think of was shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits.
I think you convinced me about Lenny Bruce, because I always think of him as a 50s comic, but really why we're still talking about him today is because of what happened in the 60s.
All alone, I'll be rich, but so all alone.
Well, here's our list so far. Now so we agree Bill Cosby and Woody Allen.
Yep.
Then we got Joan Rivers, Bob Newhart. You convinced me he's on the list.
Yeah.
Then we got Jonathan Winters, Dick Gregory, and Lenny Bruce. So we have 2 spots left. I think we both agree on Lenny. I know it's tough.
This is tough.
Yeah. So, all right. So right now we have Bill Cosby, Woody Allen, Bob Newhart, Lenny Bruce, and then we need our 5th one. And right now, between the 2 guys we've spoken about, we have Dick Gregory, Jonathan Winters, and also Joan Rivers.
Yeah, those are all 3 could easily be in there. This is a tough list. I don't know if I can narrow it down. Do we have to?
I don't know. Well, I always look at it like this. Whenever I do these, is that the people that didn't make our top 5 are still on the top 10. They're still in the
Okay.
So I'm thinking,
how do you, just off the top of my mind, how would you compare Joan Rivers to Lenny Bruce? Who is more, they're both important in their own ways.
That's the hard part.
I guess maybe Lenny more because, like we said, Joan really peaked, emerged in the 80s.
Right.
Yeah, So
that takes Joan out. So we'll take
Joan out.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do Jonathan Winters versus Lenny Bruce.
We got Lenny's in, but
Lenny's in.
It's Dick Gregory. So
Dick Gregory is the 5th.
Dick Gregory versus Jonathan Winters. So that's tough because they're 2 completely different comics. Different styles.
And one has a legacy of. Wow. I mean, that's to me impossible. They're just.
It's impossible to say who. It depends who you talk to and who's more important.
And it depends on no. It also depends on what you value. It depends on do you value what Dick Gregory did, which was again the Jackie Robinson of stand-up, or what Jonathan Winters did, which there was no one doing off the top of their head improvisational, and that's Robin Williams' idol. I mean, it's
tough.
It might be Dick Gregory, and I love Jonathan Winters just because of the legacy, and I don't want to be accused of being a racist. So
I'm leaning towards that. I am leaning towards I also agree with Dick Gregory.
Yeah, we totally agree with Dick Gregory. I want to go on the record that we here, the 2 of us.
We both, yeah. So this is a great list. This is a great safe list. No, this is a great list. We have here, and again, I don't know if the order matters that much.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
So we got Bill Cosby, Woody Allen, Bob Newhart, Dick Gregory, and Lenny Bruce.
Yeah, that's no women. No women.
Well, yeah, I mean,
that's tough.
They broke ground in the 50s, you could say,
right?
And then
in the honorable mentions in the 6 through 10 are Joan Rivers, Jonathan Winters. Who else? There was one other person that was really.
We said Moms Mabley.
And Moms Mabley, definitely, yeah. So,
and Shelley Berman too.
And Shelley Berman, yeah. So those are 6, 7, 8, and 9, right?
Yeah.
Oh, pretty good list. Pretty good list.
That's a great list. And this was an honor and a pleasure doing this with you, Wayne.
Thank you, brother.
I can't tell you how much this means to me, man.
How much does it mean?
It means a lot. You wrote the book. You actually wrote
I'm kidding.
the book
I'm kidding.
on the history of stand-up. I got it right here. And it's great stuff.
You don't have to.
So I know you're working on a lot of stuff. How can people find you and follow you?
Yeah, I have a website, WayneFederman.com, the classic, and then Twitter is my main thing. I don't do that much Instagram, but at Federman on Twitter, and you can email me if you have any questions. Like, people do it all the time. I love it. Cool.
Yeah, love to have you back. Do another one if you want. The top 5 of whatever top 5 you want to tackle.
How about the top 5 of your top 5 shows?
All right.
I'm just pitching.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, my man.
You rock, man. Thank you.
All right,
so
Don.
much.
Thank you so much for reaching out. I'm going to say goodbye.
Take care. Wayne Federman, everybody. Well, there you have it, folks. That's the top 5 comedians who emerged in the 60s. Hope you liked it. And let us know what you think in the comments as well. And if we missed anybody or should have added somebody else, we want to hear what you have to say. So thanks again, everybody. And we'll see you again next week.